So the 1DC Black Workers Center is a member-led space that builds racial and economic justice through popular education, direct action, and worker-owned alternatives. Tonight we're happy to welcome Delonte Wilkins, who's an organizer with the Black Workers Center, and he's going to talk about the critical importance of the work.
Hi. Hello.
That good?
Hello. Alright, I think I got it. Hello?
Yeah.
That's good.
Alright. Hello. My name is Delonte Wilkins, as mentioned. I'm an organizer with 1DC's Black Workers Center, where, as she said, we build racial and economic justice through popular education, direct action, and worker-owned alternatives. Why Black Workers Center? Though we build with people from all social, racial, and economic backgrounds, we recognize that what has happened in DC, black folks in this country and in DC specifically right now have been targeted for unjust reasons. Gentrification in DC, specifically, that, for example, I've been in DC my whole life, and I've been able to witness the tactics and strategies deployed amongst my community. I remember when I first seen DC was Chocolate City, as some of you might know before, but you look around now, it's not quite that anymore, right? And it just happened so fast. It happened really fast. I remember growing up, and 2003, where I first heard about the first neighborhood getting knocked down, Capers and Southeast, and heard about them getting knocked down, and to my neighborhood, where it was a black residential neighborhood right here in Shaw, right down the street, where it was predominantly black. Everyone's pretty much black, and I remember when the first white folks started moving in my neighborhood, one white guy specifically, and they would start setting up these community meetings that I knew nothing about, that none of us knew nothing about.
Wow.
And we sat around playing football in our yard. Cause we had a big cave yard right there, Christmas Day. It's probably had a cave yard. We sat right there, played football, had a basketball court run. But guys from the neighborhood, it was kids in the neighborhood at the time. So I guess in their community meetings came about them trying to fix up the park in the back or something like that. And where they pretty much didn't allow us to play football anymore. We still out there playing football, and he's like, "No, you can't play football out here no more." And I'm like, "You just moved in this neighborhood. What you mean you can't play football right here?" And it was a fight with us at first, but then we tried to compromise. But the guy said, "I promise you, y'all, it's gonna be good." When it was complete, it was a dog park. It was no more able for us to play football. The basketball court that we had back there, that same white guy that I was telling you about, we had our nice NBA style basketball court. We had to run a full court back then. We was like 14, around the time 15, and we actually caught that white guy actually going and knocking our court and breaking the court down while we were sitting in the court, and he ran, and he got away with it at that moment, but we knew it was him. We'd seen him doing, because we sitting on our porch and seen it happen. But we see the same thing, and we see the same thing happen over and over in all these communities, and where they use the police as a tactic for them, and the police because if you think about it, we sat outside, and we was young, drinking or do whatever we did. We get the police called on us or whatever, but these same folks that's now out here can have it. But, not to get too much into that, but my point was that the strategies deployed on the communities is always crime-driven. They're a violent group, they're crime, criminal. However, so on a small scale, we got Brooklyn Manor, as Yasmina mentioned earlier. You got private police force going out enforcing petty community rules. Don't stand on the grass, don't do this, don't do that. But on a large scale, we got all hands on deck, which happened right around that same time when I tell you when my city started becoming increasingly more paler and more richer, right? Hands on deck 2008, I remember when was going doing these neighborhood sweeps, 100 people in my neighborhood, Lee Dre Park, right in this area, were targeted and arrested for conspiracy. Right. Conspiracy. Not just here, Clifton, everywhere you see it was conspiracies going on, like a whole lot of petty conspiracy. Some of them didn't lead to a lot of times, some of them led to, but it was conspiracy, and we couldn't understand. I didn't understand what was happening. All hands on deck was pretty much police jumping out, jump out cars, going around targeting black communities where they, in militant ways, where they're pretty much jumping out anybody. If you on the corner, you walking, I got jumped out quite often. Young person, 16, going through this, and I couldn't understand what was going on, but I guess growing up now and seeing what has happened, like I said, I mean, we see that it was all systematically planned from Brooklyn Manor. And like I said, they're trying to, it's a displacement campaign. It's the same tactic over and over. Police force come in and harass everyone, knock the place down, and that's just what's happening there. You think it's all economic crimes. All economic crimes, supposedly, they are selling drugs, they're doing economic things, robbery, whatever. It's all coming back to economics, and they tend to know the solution is to move in richer folks. That's what gets rid of the violence, right? People that's not so hungry, people that's not so much don't have. So as I said, they locked a lot of folks up, and I was one of those folks that got locked up for some petty things back when, and we didn't have jobs and stuff like that. But you know, when I went to prison, I recognized everyone had a job. You were given a job once you jumped off the bus, but it was so hard for me to get a job before I came. And you come off the bus and you got pretty much the jobs, like you got inmates doing everything. They doing everything, electrician, plumbing, like everything. The same things that I couldn't do in the street, I can do in prison. But you know the difference, you had to pay that electrician on the street 30, 40, whatever hour. I got paid $9 a month for, and this is when I started to make sense of what was going on in this whole system, where it just made sense. It was all about profit. It was all about exploitation. So at the Black Workers Center, as I said, we build racial and economic justice through popular education. Popular education is a vital, it's very important. In popular education, is basically we come around as a community sharing stories and exchanging our experiences with one another and putting a systematic analysis behind it. And that's so important. It's so important for folks to understand, because a lot of people are not connecting the dots of why, because a lot of us are feeling alone in our struggles, but in reality, it's all a big part of a bigger system. So popular education is what we do. Worker-owned alternatives. Worker-owned alternatives, we try to get folks again, get them a team of 3 folks and come together, and we provide technical assistance to help build these co-ops and try to connect them to resources as well. Also, worker-owned alternatives look like this time banking program, for example, that we got set up at the center right now, where time banking pretty much is under the principle that everybody's labor should be measured the same manner, and time is an accurate way to measure that equitably, because you put in an hour, no matter what your trade or service is, you put in an hour, I put in an hour. So whether you're a lawyer or an auto mechanic, you gave me an hour, you put an hour in this time banking machine, and you didn't necessarily exchange it directly with me, but you exchanged it with somebody in that time banking community. So, and we're trying to get folks to realize the benefits and the value of their labor. That way, we could continue to educate folks and understand the alternative to this exploitative system that we live in right now. So one of the ways that we got folks in, try to attract folks to that time banking program, especially young folks, we got production equipment which we offer free of charge in exchange for volunteer hours, where we got music recording studio. It's a pretty nice recording studio, and we also got like video equipment, and we get t-shirt embroidery and 3D printer machines. All industry nice stuff where folks can come and use free of charge in exchange for volunteer hours, and where we would have these folks working on campaigns at Brooklyn Manor, we're having them do a lot of different things where they can realize the benefit and the value of their labor, and especially exchanging within each other, because we're trying to bring that barter. I mean, because right now money is a weapon of man right now, in this currency that's going on right now. We can't control it, and once I get paid, my check already gone. So we recognizing what's going on, and that's where what we do at the Black Worker Center. We educate folks and we build alternatives to the exploitative system that we're living in right now. So I think also I gotta mention, because I think I'm supposed to mention, bringing back to the prisons as well. As I said, I have a strong connection in prison. I mean, obviously, like, I feel like my whole family locked up right now, and a lot of them doing a lot of time. But what they did, they created a machine for us. They created something where we could actually use for our benefit, almost, because there's so many of us right now, and make our organizing effort so realizable. Because like I said, I have a lot of folks and a lot of friends and a lot of people in prison, and DC has been taught. DC is the #1 in the world where folks have been gone to prison, and for the most part, we represent a large portion of federal inmates, and that gives us a lot of organizing leverage where we could kind of bring that to the streets now, and that's what we're working on at One DC as well. We're trying to create a subscription, a dialogue between the prisons and the streets, and try to keep that information going where it ain't nowhere to run for no one, where we got leverage to actually make sure this information is heard, make sure our analysis is represented, and that folks are being heard. Because right now, obviously, the prison is not being heard, but you hear a whole lot of negative things about what folks have done, but they don't see the positive of what folks have become. And we want that to be highlighted, and we want to show the brilliance and things that's inside that prison right now. So, I mean, some of the work that we do at One DC, if folks want to get involved, I encourage folks to reach out and connect with us.
Popular struggle again, both in DC and
yeah, so maybe, yeah, that was a good question. It's not quite so easy to answer. I mean, I'm sitting right here thinking about, you said have something like this have been done in DC. Not to my knowledge. Black liberation in DC means, obviously, folks have got a lot invested in the ignorance of black folks in this community. And unfortunately, what I've experienced and what I understand, most organizations that do pop up, they most so pacification organizations where they kind of keep trying to pacify folks that's hurting. So we got a whole lot of big nonprofits, some for example, where you feed folks, you keep feeding people the fish, but they won't give people the fishing rod where they could take care of themselves. So to my knowledge, this type of work is not supported, and it's a big struggle actually to even get this far where we have come as an organization with One DC, because this work is not funded by the government. This work is not funded by racist big foundations. Instead, they are pacified with a whole bunch of things to keep folks dependent on the system and other people. So I hope I answer for the most part.
Yeah, the second part. Tactic, right? Like, there's been a long history of black empowerment and organizing in DC, and militant struggle too.
It's been
And you would think that that's like a logical step to say like, hey, let's empower people at work. But that's maybe a different type of connection.
Well, I think the most. I mean, because I have limited knowledge on all of the labor struggles that's happening in DC, but I think one of the for my age folks that that know, I think one of the most radical things that I heard was what's the group that was going. They had a group that pretty much hired everyone, like returning citizens and stuff. They had to put them through, and I can't even think. Not jobs, not jail. I can't even think of those clowns right now. But what they do was they was recycling the jobs and paying people minimum wage. But they was getting returning citizens job, but it was also temporary job. But folks had them for like 6 months, and everybody thought that it was such a great program. And unfortunately, we know capitalism doesn't work like that. It needs poor people. It needs exploited folks. So, yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering, Delonte, if you could talk about like some of the political education that you do, and like how is it that the different workers are involved in that, and how is it that then they're like leading the different sessions, and like what kind of what does your political education look like?
So, political education, and that's a good question. Specifically popular education, like I said, where we try to take folks' stories and put a systematic analysis behind it. And one question I might ask folks coming into this space where, and I just got some group of choppers, like some interns, some high school students that I kind of felt bad because I kind of radicalized them a little bit. But we asked them questions like, just get them thinking. Well, I asked them, well, how you get rich in this country? And they all like, well, work hard and and you know the general idea that most folks got, where you just work hard and go to college and you're gonna make it. And I asked them a simple question like this: well, if everybody go to college, who's going to work at McDonald's? And they starting to think now, and it's not. And I mean, this particular group, they started to think about it. And they really said, well, the Mexicans. And I said, well, they went to college too. Everybody got a 4.0. So you see what type of system we live in. It's a survival of the fittest machine, where we are encouraged to compete with one another. And we do know that it's enough food, there's enough land to grow more food, it's enough houses to feed everybody, to house everyone, but we are encouraged to compete for whose benefit. You know, and so that's something that might happen. Also, we got a whole database of like a whole Dropbox full of revolutionary, we have a lot of political education. We education is liberation. That's what we believe. We just want folks to be educated. So that's what our major focus is. So I would like to share a whole lot of our education material, but it's just so much. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
I was interested in the part at the end when you were talking about connecting it to prisons. Is that an effort that started already, and how's it worked out so far?
So literally we just started this month, and it's like in the beginning stages. I've been kind of prison organizing even since I was in prison. Like I've been talking a whole lot of trash, and I got relationships with folks, and I've been sending emails back and forth to the prisons. And right now we're in beginning stages of actually trying to develop this magazine, this periodical that can go inside that prison. So we're doing a lot of research, and we're trying to collect stories and trying to actually build that right now. So it's pretty much in the beginning stages, but we got the I guess some of the I want to call shot callers that's in DC folks that, cause prison culture works as shot callers. So pretty much like shot callers pretty much go around and like now everybody on the same page. So I've been talking to a lot of those shot callers, trying to get because they're going to be instrumental in us actually organizing. And the conversation is happening, and now we just got to pretty much get that magazine inside. So that's what that is. Pretty early in the game, but we thinking maybe in another 2 months or so we might got a hard copy ready to go out.
Do you expect any resistance to that, or to any of the other work that you're doing with the Black Worker Center or 1DC?
Well, resistance. Okay.
I'm sure you do, but
yeah. So I started just this month, and I was sending emails back and forth. You know, they monitor the emails. So one of the major places that I was actually going, and they on lockdown right now. I'm not sure if it's related. I'm not sure, but I haven't heard from them since we began. So that's part of the problem, and I'm not quite sure what these folks have done. I try to, we actually try to help. I think we try to get Yasmina to go in there and talk to some of the guys that I needed her to talk to, and they denied that. So we expect resistance. However, we gonna finesse through all of it.
Yeah, I lived in Baltimore for 20 years, and I was part of a group that worked on prisoner solidarity. And one of the biggest issues was that families were so far away from in addition to having their family members incarcerated, they could hardly even get to visit them. So I was just curious about the prison population in DC. Where are they physically located? Like, where do they?
So federal facilities. It's almost like they in New York. They in Connecticut. They in Texas. They in California. They everywhere. A federal facility. They everywhere. It's not one particular location that they're at. DC doesn't have a state prison, so folks that get locked up for any type of felony are going to the federal facilities, and federal facilities usually are folks that mostly, I think it was designed for like mafia folks, people that have been arrested for major crimes, but in DC that's not the case. You get locked up for UUV, you're going to be out the feds with the big dog. So people are everywhere, but it's to our benefit again, because now we got folks that's from all over the world connected with DC folks, and DC is everywhere, and every federal facility is almost I don't want to say majority, but it's a large population of DC folks. So that's what I meant when I was like, we got a lot of leverage, and it's a lot of power in organizing once we start sending that in there. Yeah.
So basically what I hear correctly is like DC is not like other places where they have like a jail system, because there's a difference between a jail and prison. So if you, I don't know, if you commit some sort of misdemeanor and they send you to jail, I mean, you could be in jail for like a year for whatever reason. And I guess what I'm trying to understand is that if you're sent to jail for, I don't know, for some misdemeanor, and then you don't have money to pay the bail, you pretty much stay there. So DC is kind of different, since we don't have jails. People just, for misdemeanors, they'll send them to like some prison somewhere far away, and you never can be heard from.
So DC jail, DC is quite different than other states for several reasons. DC does not. For misdemeanors, you'll stay at DC jail. So you could do misdemeanors are usually crimes, I think that 6 months might be the maximum, or a year, something like that. So you could do some of that time at DC jail. You will do that time at DC jail. You won't be sent to the federal facility.
Yeah, but a lot of poor people don't have money sometimes to pay the bail, so they
so,
stay in jail.
So myself, for instance, I sat in jail for 2 years trying to go to trial. DC doesn't do bills. You don't even have an option to even if you had money, you strictly subject to the judge's decision and the prosecutors. So in my case, I sat in there trying to go to trial for 2 years, in which I knew I was innocent and they knew I was innocent, but being though I was a fighter and being though I wouldn't submit, and I was like, I didn't even have no one pressing charges against me, they wouldn't allow me to go to trial. they wouldn't allow me to go to trial, so they held me to submission because I didn't have no one behind me that it was pretty. You could kick me under the rug and no one would have missed me too much. I mean, my family missed me, but they ain't speaking out too much. Then they can do whatever they want to you. So yeah, that's what it looks like in DC jail. You just pretty much. I mean, and it's not just my story. Like I tell you, so many people's stories, like, and it's just heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking when you go in there and you see how many people this system has crushed for baloney, for nothing, and
Yeah.
that's where we at. Yeah.
Thank you for your beautiful presentation. I remember the first time I saw Starbucks in Harlem. This was in the 90s. Everybody thought, "Oh my God, what is Starbucks doing here? Nobody's gonna go into a Starbucks." Especially at that time, the coffee was expensive. Still, it was like $3.50. And this was before like really overt gentrification. And I remember within like 2 weeks, people started to go into Starbucks and started to buy the coffee, and everybody was surprised because it still wasn't there were very few white people buying the coffee, but it's like the capitalists knew in advance because they knew that they wanted this property, and they wanted it sort of, and that was like the first way in with this kind of like nice place. But they were going to make money off of the people at the same time. It wasn't like a community center. And so little by little, or not little by little, but like within 10 years, it became this really gentrified place that is now completely unaffordable. And we see it in every single city in the world. And it's just shocking, and it's surprising to me, well not surprising, but I'm just very like, it's wonderful to me what you've been able to do given that kind of environment where you are, where and people become more individualistic with their lattes, you know? I mean, you're closer to people, but you're also farther away. Because like you said, people are thinking about themselves, what do I got to do, how do I make money? And so I'm really intrigued by how with all of that and the dislocation of people, you've been able to create this community with all of the obstacles. It says to me that there is, and I know this is true, a great, like people are still there and they want to come back and they want to take their cities over. And it's just such a great model. Like if we could do that in all these cities and have multiple places like that.
Yeah, I believe so, and it's very dangerous. To bring up your point about Starbucks and stuff, I think, well, I know how it's happened several times with DC, for example, and I'm going to bring up Ward 8 because that's one of the locations, that's actually where the Black Worker Center is located at right now. It's in the heart of what's left to be Black City right now, and one of the markers of gentrification for us is busboys and poets. So Ward 8 has one grocery store in the whole ward. One grocery store. It's a food desert. It's not no food, and it's pretty much like you could go in a lot of Black communities and you're gonna see it's pretty much a food desert. Like it's not no healthy food. It's not no Whole Foods or no Kroger's or nothing, which also happen to be markers of gentrification. But Whole Foods and Harris Teeter, all those. But Busboys and Poets got a location coming up around there right now, and they didn't decide to put no grocery store right there when all them folks have to catch the bus all the way to that one grocery store that they share. They put a Busboys and Poets right there, which, and they always put the nice Black art right there, you know, put all that stuff right there and make everybody look like it's a pill in his foot, and that's, we see it all the time. We don't subscribe to identity politics, and we can see a lot of times they try to use Black faces, and it's a Black mayor right now that's leading the wave of gentrification right now. So,
right. That's right. Yeah.
So, Yeah, so I mean, that just wanted to draw that point that we see the same thing.
Yeah, well, thanks for the
Yeah.
presentation. I thought it was excellent, and just the fact that you started like on housing and gentrification, and then the police and the prison system and the workers' rights angle, like the fact that, you know, I think that sometimes when people think of worker organizing, they think about like, well, that's just something at your job. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's an important part of it because that's where workers can shut everything down. But I mean, there are other ways to shut things down too, as we know. But you know, that kind of concept that like that as organizers or revolutionaries, that's the only place where you should focus. That clearly is like inadequate. And people have so many issues. Like they got so many issues. You can't just say like this is your issue. And I'm from New York, and I feel that's a big problem. Is that there's groups that'll be like, oh, if you got a legal problem, you go to this place. You got a workers' rights angle, you got to go to some office and 30 minutes the other direction. You got a housing problem, you go over here, and there's no integrated analysis, and you don't ever really feel any collective power. You're just like going to get services from 10 different places. And I think that even though there's like 10,000 activists in New York, sometimes it feels like, you wouldn't feel it. People feel completely intimidated and powerless. And just one thing I wanted to like echo what you were saying. I guess what was happening in D.C. 10 years ago is happening a lot in New York now with these raids. There were these like military-style raids in the Bronx, and there've been 5 in the last year, and they're bringing in tanks, literally not like these armored, not like actual military, but like armored like SUVs. They're coming in fatigues, as if they're like in the jungle somewhere. And there were federal officers, ICE officers, police, and they're using these ridiculous RICO conspiracy charges where it's like anybody who shook the hand of somebody who's in a gang, and whatever the defining gang is, like any group of friends basically in an oppressed area, now your house can be raided. And they're just raiding hundreds of people, and then when you go to some of these liberal civil rights organizations, they don't want to touch it because it's about crime. And so it's like only the real grassroots organizations. We had a protest at City Hall, and we're supposed to have a progressive mayor, Bill de Blasio. And we had a rally two weeks ago, and it was a small rally. People who are saying these gang raids are just the strategy of displacement. It's got nothing to do with gangs. Crime is at an all-time low. It's so clearly just a front for another agenda. And so it would be great if you and the other folks from the Black Workers Center, wherever, come up to New York and meet some of the same organizers, because these same real estate developers, they're operating on many different levels, many different cities, and they're using the police the exact same way. And if you wait till it's over, in a way it's too late. So everything you were saying, I was like, same thing in New York, same thing in New York.
I saw New York City was with us santuario.
Yes, yeah, right. Well, even in New York now, we got a campaign called Swipe It Forward, trying to get people on the train for free, because even though Bill de Blasio says that, there are people who have even been deported for jumping the turnstile because they didn't have the money to get on the trains. And he claims that's not happening, but once you're in that legal system, your name starts getting sent 10 different places. And the main way that the ICE is deporting people in New York is they do it on your court day. So when you come into court, or the morning of, when you're supposed to go to court for your local petty little misdemeanor or violation, that's the day they know they can find you in your house at 5, 6 in the morning. And they are doing raids while going on TV and saying there are no raids.
In New York and DC, we both at war with these weirdo liberals that keep on acting like they progressive. And I mean, I'm sure New York is a big so-called liberal progressive state, and so is DC, and we can see we're at the end. That's the number one enemy right now, these liberals. I'm just being honest from our perspective. They're just all the way in the way. I mean, I'd rather much the blatant right than the weird left.
I was going to ask in your area, how high the rent prices?
How's the rent prices?
Yes.
In DC? I mean,
In the Detroit Park.
what are you, northeast or northwest, southwest?
well, I'm from this community. I'm actually from Shaw. This is where my family was raised. We bought our house.
Northwest?
Yeah,
Here,
right here,
right
right here. Yeah, we bought a house just like this. All the houses, pretty much row houses, look quite the same.
Okay.
We bought our house back in 1960s, 50s for 50 grand, and our house just now was sold last year for 980,000.
That's good.
Man.
That's good. It should be like a million.
Yeah.
Damn.
So that's that expensive. I think the average rent in DC for a 1-bedroom might be somewhere close to 2 grand. So I mean, literally, you probably try to look at some listings. I was looking up some listings up right now, trying to find an apartment right now. There's not even too many listings right now. There's nowhere to live in DC. It's a huge crisis right now, and in the middle of this huge crisis, affordable housing crisis, we just now sent $22 million back of federal money that's supposed to address this type of housing crisis. So I mean, we can see clearly the violence is facilitated by the state, and it's not coincidence. It's deliberate. It's on purpose, and it's violent. They need to be. They're criminals.
Need to be arrested.
Yeah, just one real quick comment about, you had mentioned the Office on Returning Citizens. I don't know whether their programs have been defunded or whether they're still going on, but I really like what you had to say about that, because it reminds me of a couple of years ago when they opened up that Whole Foods Pavilion in Southeast. So like, you don't even have a Whole Foods or a grocery store, but you do have the brand new like concert venue, whatever, sponsored by Whole Foods, and then that like 3 Beige busboys, right?
Yep.
And so I was thinking, then the same mayor's office that's like funding the project for returning citizens, you know, they're in bed with these corporations that want to pay low-wage jobs. So that's what it is. It's like a way to pacify the community. So how do we fight back against that while at the same time recognizing that even getting the programming was a victory, because they wouldn't have given it to us. So like, we have to offer a public alternative.
So the biggest problem with like greedy people is greed, and I definitely like to finesse greed. So how we do that? I mean, like we just said, to work on alternatives. I mean, like time banking. That time banking program is revolutionary. It's just like, you just got the medium currency, money, green paper is nothing but a medium between two human beings, and if we could just get rid of the middleman, Uncle Sam, what power do he have right now? He has no power after he's eliminated out the equation of a business deal that he is no longer equated. You just did my hair for an hour. It took you an hour to do it. That I didn't give you $20. I did something for you, and for an hour exactly. So like, you just gotta get rid of the middleman. You know, these pimps. You gotta get rid of them, and how we do that is by building community, like building in community, being intentional about focus on community, building social programs, building things up for our community, because they're not gonna fund it. We have to do it ourselves, and I mean, that's it. Solidarity in our community, sharing each other's struggle, and that's just exactly how we combat it at One DC at Block Worker Center. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, so the time banking thing is a great idea, and it's a good way of sort of thinking about alternative ways to do work and to provide services and do things, I think. But what I'm sort of curious is, in terms of the idea of like a worker, what is the phrase that you
worker-owned alternative?
Worker-owned alternative. So
okay.
Are you hoping to, in addition to the time banking, actually doing something like a cooperative kind of enterprise that then, and I'm thinking, you know, there can be a potential integration of people returning from prison who have gained skills, you know, like as an electrician or something, who is may be funneled into low wage or otherwise exploited things that could be funneled into a worker-owned cooperative kind of system that would be able to use their skills in a non-exploitative way. And so do you have plans to do that kind of stuff? Because I know, like, I'm a member of the Democracy at Work, you know, and we're trying to do that kind of thing too, to have as many co-ops as we can, to help them as much as we can. It seems like a perfect kind of marriage in terms of the idea of a cooperative kind of enterprise that's able to do exactly what you want to do in terms of, you know.
Absolutely. I thought I mentioned that we do it off a technical census cooperatives. Folks, so just to be for like what you said with returning citizens, we have worked with a group called Tight Shift, which is a labor co-op of returning citizens who got all types of different skills, and we've been working with them since the beginning, and they have since been doing their thing. But that's definitely, I mean, that's one. Cooperatives and time banking is another. And time banking, I think time banking is definitely the preferred way where we would want to go. But I mean, folks, if you want to come and build a co-op as well, that's cool. But I just don't like the idea of money in between the co-op. Yeah, but we do that as well. Because I mean, we still right now in the system that we have living right now, we got to get money. So at least to keep our food, our shelter right now. Yeah, Claire?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. So 1DC, I'm from 1DC too, right?
Yeah.
Also has members focused on building cooperatives through Cooperation DC. So one of those is a child care cooperative, so a group of, right now it's mostly Latino women developing a child care cooperative in their building, and then plans to extend it to an east of the river co-op focused on mostly Black women. Another one we've worked with is Dental Bites, which is trying to transition into being a cooperative once they build up their scale. So yeah, excited about that.
That's good. Yeah.
One last question about like organizing one step further. You know, like we're talking about how to deal with, how to basically ameliorate, how to deal with these crises under capitalism. But how do, you know, I'm thinking about how we might strategize to incorporate people into organizations that reject capitalism altogether, something like the PSL, focused on like the macro in addition to like our day-to-day. And that can be quite overwhelming, right? Because we're trying to keep a roof over our heads and feed our families. But at the same time, when you think about, for example, what's going on in Syria, or what Sunil was talking about, U.S. attacks on Venezuela, like the Afro community in Venezuela under pre-Chavez was incredibly oppressed and that did not have access to any resources, and that's a society that's trying to change itself from a macro level, although it's a different revolutionary process. So,
organizing in DC, especially in low-income community, could be very challenging sometimes. Me, myself, I like to think of myself as an artist sometimes when it comes to doing that, because I feel like I know the streets like the back of my hands, and I know what gets people moving. I know what gets, that diversity is one of the most, like, it's very important. You know, sometimes when I go in the community sometimes, saying the same thing that I've been saying for a whole lot of times to folks, it's not valid. Folks don't see it, but when I come in with another group of folks, we got lawyers, we got doctors, we got different folks saying the same stuff. Now people got to listen. And one thing that we organizing in 1DC right now is pretty new, but we pretty much about to we about to have a massive outreach day. We plan on doing Thursdays where we coming out 50, 100 deep, coming to these neighborhoods and pretty much showing how, you know, it's serious. And sometimes trust is one of the main things, but I think my reputation in the community is legitimate, as well as some of the comrades that we come from that's coming with us, and that's important because my reputation might not be enough, but this room definitely is enough where we can go around these neighborhoods and get people to move, because right now they just don't know how serious it is, and at least they've been lied to so many times. It's kind of hard to know who's true or who. These liberals are the enemies, I'm telling you. They always come with good intentions, and They end up taking a picture with you, feed you, and you go home still poor while they went home richer. You know, so